Hey, I'm Dr. Steve Wander from Revive Healthcare. This video today is going to be a little introduction on diabetes, the current traditional form of treating diabetes, and sort of a different method, what we call functional medicine method, where we're going to look to the cause of diabetes versus covering up symptoms or try to bully the body with medications, etc. Now, a little bit of background on me. When I was about 13 years old, I was out to lunch with my grandparents, and my grandmother, who was diabetic, first thing she did, she looked down and she put down 13 pills. And I was like, what are all the pills for? And she was like, well, the first one's for my blood sugar, the second one's for my blood pressure, the third one's for my cholesterol, the fourth one's for the side effects of the first one, the fifth one's for the side effects of the second one, and so on and so on. And so that just didn't make sense to me. And my grandfather, he was from Brooklyn, and he wasn't a formally educated man, but he always taught us, he says, if you can't make it make common sense, there's no way it could be true. And so from that moment, I saw that didn't make common sense, and I saw her go from oral medication after oral medication onto insulin, dialysis, amputation, until about 2 months after that lunch, she passed away. So I got very interested in what most people would consider to be a boring subject. So that's how I got into this type. Now, a little bit what I'm going to go over today, we're going to go over healthcare. And actually in this country, we don't have healthcare, we have sick care. And what I mean by that is, you know, typical traditional treatment is you have this ill, take this pill, I'll see you in 3 months. Well, that's sick care, that's not healthcare. Some of you, I'm here to give you a little bit of hope. Some of you, I want to empower you and talk about what health is. And some of you might get so interested and possibly motivated that this is something you might want to do in terms of reversing your diabetes. Now, when I say reverse diabetes, what do I mean? Well, reverse diabetes means to reduce and eliminate the need for medication across the board, done by your prescribing physician. And so most diabetics, very high number, maybe over 90–95% in my experience, are on what I call the diabetic cocktail. What is that? Blood sugar, blood pressure, and cholesterol. And that's what we call the diabetic cocktail. And unfortunately, even now, today, over the past couple of years even, many people are on blood pressure and cholesterol medications, and they don't even have high blood pressure or high cholesterol. And I ask them, I'm like, why are you on these medications if you don't have that? And they say, well, my doctor said I'm eventually going to get the problem, I might as well start now. Now, no medication is to be given for a preventative measure. So it's given to handle something. And so statins, it is proven that they actually cause type 2 diabetes. So here you are in a high percentage taking high cholesterol medication, which maybe you have high cholesterol or maybe you don't, but regardless, the drug causes type 2 diabetes. So reverse diabetes means reduce and eliminate the need for medication across the board, not just the blood sugar medication, but across the board. And again, that's done through your prescribing physician. Lose weight without exercise. Most diabetics are given this fantastic, in quotes, information or recommendation, hey, lose weight, change your diet, exercise. Well, weight has nothing to do with diabetes. It's not the cause and it's not the cure. And so it's very important when we talk about reversing it that you understand that that's what we're talking about. And some people actually, it would be harmful for them to actually exercise. You know, get some energy back, sex drive back, be able to sleep. And so these, when I talk about reversing diabetes, that's what we mean. Now, here's the story that most people tell me. And I've told this story at Harvard. I've told this story all across the country on TV, all over. Here's the story. You go to your doctor for whatever reason. Maybe it's just your general checkup. Maybe it is for a life insurance policy. Maybe you're not feeling so good. So you go to your doctor and they do some blood. That's normal. And you get a call 2–3 days later from the office. And you can tell by the tone of the voice on the other end of the line, something's not right, because they're like, Mr. or Mrs. Jones, the doctor got your blood work back, we need to see you. And so you go into the office, and eventually you go in for your appointment, and you go in and they say, doctor comes in, says, hey, Mr. Jones, I'm sorry to inform you, you're a type 2 diabetic, here, take this. And this is typically a script that begins with M and ends with N and sounds a lot like metformin. And then they get that advice I told you about, change your diet, lose weight, exercise, I'll see you again in 3 months. So then you go back in 3 months, 4 months. Now, depending on the prescribing habits of your doctor, typically you're gonna start with 1,000 milligrams a day, 500 in the morning, 500 in the evening, and you go back, and eventually, whether it's 3 months later, 6 months later, doctor's gonna say, hey, Mr. Jones, your blood sugar's creeping up, your A1C's creeping up, we need to make a change. Now, in the pill for an ill model, which is what I call it, what would a change mean? Means either an increase in your medication, so typically go to now the max dose of metformin, which is 2,000 milligrams a day, and maybe they'll add another one. And so basically the standard of care is throughout the same for everyone. So typically you start with metformin, which has a lot of gastrointestinal side effects. Then you go on to either glyburide, glimepiride, or glipizide. Then Actos, Januvia, Farxiga, Invokana, Jardiance, until eventually your doctor waves his finger at you and says, hey, Mr. Jones, you weren't listening to me for the past couple of years. I'm going to need to put you on insulin. And that's typically, unfortunately, how you're counseled for the rest of your life. Now, I can tell you with dealing with diabetics and reversing diabetes for many, many years, that if we lined up 100 diabetics, there's going to be 100 different reasons on why they can't regulate their blood sugar. And so if there's 100 different reasons, should these people, or should you, if you're diabetic, should you be on the same treatment plan as Joe, Mary, Pat, Steve, and Mike, if you all have different reasons? Well, common sense tells you, well, no. But you're all on the same treatment plan. And this treatment plan has caused diabetes to go from what's the 7th leading cause of death from the ADA. This is the American Diabetes Association. Now it's the 3rd, and the ADA will tell you it's underreported as a cause of death. Now, let's talk about the top complications. You can look this up on the CDC. Number 1, heart attack. Number 2, stroke. Number 3, liver failure, kidney failure. Number 4, blindness. Number 5, amputation. And the research says if your A1C is above 6.4, you have about a 67% chance more of getting one of these complications. And even if your blood sugar is quote unquote controlled, air quotes intended, and you're on medication, your risk for those complications are the same, even if your numbers are good. Because if you weren't on those medications, what would your numbers be? And so I'm always surprised that some diabetics don't even know the complications. And I understand, you're confused. Your doctor change your diet, lose weight, exercise. Well, what did they tell you to eat? What did they actually tell you to do? And so, listen, type 2 diabetes has nothing to do with weight. Some diabetics need to lose weight, but it's not the cause and it's not the cure. Now, I'm also here to tell you there's actually 4 types of diabetes. Most people know type 1, where the pancreas doesn't work and the pancreas doesn't secrete insulin. Then there's type 2, which you think you are, and you may be, I don't know. Type 3 is called sugar brain or Alzheimer's. So that is type 3 diabetes. And then there's a type 1.5. Type 1.5 means you have an autoimmune aspect to your case, meaning you have either been diagnosed or not been diagnosed as of yet, because you have an autoimmune. So some of the common autoimmune diseases you might have heard of, rheumatoid arthritis, sarcoidosis, multiple sclerosis, lupus, ulcerative colitis, eczema, psoriasis, etc. So these are all autoimmune, and what happens is you're actually a type 1.5, and if you don't find that out through testing, then you're not going to be able to regulate your blood sugar. If you look online for any of the drugs, they all have major side effects. Matter of fact, Invokana just came out about a year ago with a black box warning. So a black box warning on a drug means there's an extra warning for you. What is the extra warning? If you're on this drug, there's a 50% more chance that you are going to have an amputation. Now, again, no one watching this video, and I'm not recommending that anyone just stop taking your medication. That is not what I'm saying. But I'm saying you need to look at the big picture. You know, I know some of this information I'm giving you is new and you haven't heard it before. It may be different or opposite. And you need to kind of stand back and maybe like you're in a plane looking 30,000 feet down, like you're hearing this information for the first time. So nothing I'm telling you is, it's all researched. I can source all the research for you. You can look it up. It's all out there. You can go to pubmed.org and find anything you want. So I only want you to remember one thing, that type 2 diabetes is treatable, preventable, and reversible. And when we pick the right patient for a program, we rarely see a patient fail. Now, through the years, we've been doing this type of reversal in our office. But what we found is that through technology, we know that we can do this same program online. So what does that mean for you? You don't have to go to a doctor's office, no time in a car. You're still able to speak to your doctor. So again, it's reversible, treatable, and preventable. And the fact of the matter is, you can't argue with labs. It's in black and white. You can see an A1C go from a certain number to a certain number. This is another thing. Those of you who are diabetic, have you even looked up to see what A1C stands for? Now, when I'm in a crowd of people and I ask this at a dinner presentation, or I'm at wherever I'm speaking, no one raises their hand. So I had to change the question. How many of you have looked it up? 1 or 2 people. So, you know, in today's world, in healthcare, you must take better responsibility for your care. It is not your doctor's responsibility. It is not your parents' responsibility, your kids, your spouse. It's 100% your responsibility. And so if there's one marker that your doctor told you were diabetic, it's A1C, and you don't even know what the acronym stands for. Now, there's some references that say it doesn't stand for anything, and there's some that stands for a Chi-K informational criterion, which is a statistical term, which means we want to compare this to this. But the point is, you must take responsibility. Every 60 seconds, there are 300 more people diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. It's an epidemic. If you have kids or grandkids that were born after the year 2000, there is a 50% chance of them becoming type 2 diabetic. Like, that's mind-boggling. That's crazy. And I'm going to kill 3 myths for you. Number 1, type 2 diabetes has nothing to do with weight. Number 2, oh, well, some people say, well, I'm diabetic because everyone in my family is diabetic. It must be the genetics. No, absolutely no gene has been discovered for type 2 diabetes, not one. So it's not genetic. And even if it were, because there are diseases which are genetic, a gene must be turned on. So, you know, but it's not right now. So, and number 3, well, I'm diabetic because I'm getting a little bit older. Listen, I've read a lot of medical textbooks. There's not one that says, hey, when you reach age blank, you are going to get blank disease. It doesn't work that way. So I'm taking those excuses away from you because they're not valid and they're not true. Now, you know, there was a study done years ago at NIH, which I'm right down the street from NIH. It's called the Accord study, like the car. And basically it took half the people and they said, hey, we're going to treat you with the medication and we're going to be very aggressive with the dosage. And the other half of people, we're going to do the dosages as directed. And they had to stop the study years later. Why? Because all the people who were getting aggressive treatment, they died. So they literally had to stop an entire study. So, you know, I always tell, you know, people, there's 2 cliches that need to be corrected. Number 1, what you don't know can hurt you. So I'm here giving you all of this data so that doesn't happen. And number 2, ignorance is not bliss. So it's my job to give you this data, let you know that this can be done. And I will tell you, reversing type 2 diabetes is simple, but not easy. What do I mean simple? When we figure out why you can't regulate your blood sugar, it could be problems with your hormones, it could be problems with your thyroid, it could be, you could have adrenal fatigue, you could have fatty liver, you could have leaky gut, you could have a lot of different things that are contributing to your ability to not regulate your blood sugar. What you have to realize is the blood sugar not being regulated is a symptom of a whole bunch of stuff going on. But in the model you're in right now, they're like, hey, your blood sugar's high, let's bully it and by covering it up and bring it down. That's the Band-Aid approach. That's like you going to your mechanic and you're like, hey, Tony, my car's making this clicking sound, click, 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 click. And then he says, well, just put on these headphones and you won't hear it. So you don't hear the problem, but the problem's still there. And so it's very important to realize that everyone is going to have a different mechanism for their inability to regulate their blood sugar. And so when you go to a lab and get it tested, what is the difference between me looking at the lab and talking to you in front of me, or me looking at the lab and talking to you over the internet? There's no difference. It's the same data. So it's very important to know that. So, my job is to let you know that, you can turn left or you can turn right. Your app, this is America. You can do whatever you want. You can continue on the pill for an ill model, thinking, the definition of insanity is what? Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result, right? So you can do that, or you can go a different route and say, hey, that does make sense that if we find out what's causing my blood sugar not to be regulated, and we handle that, then a really good side effect is your blood sugar will be regulated. And so that's important to know. And so here you are going through step by step and you're creating new norms, Well, my blood sugar used to be in the 120s, that's not so bad. Now you're happy when it's under 200. And then you were on 4 medications and now you're on 6. And now you're on 8 and with no plan, with no game plan and nothing. And all you're being told is, hey, change your diet, lose weight, exercise. Did you even ask your doctor, hey, well, what diet should I do? I'm here to tell you, number one, there's no diet. There's no diabetic diet. Each person has different foods which are going to cause them issues, and you must find out what they are. And that can be tested for. You could have a problem with salmon. Everybody would say, hey, salmon's a healthy food, but for you, it's not healthy. So the key to reversing the process is we must find out why you can't regulate your blood sugar. How do we do that? Very thorough testing, very comprehensive blood, urine. We do a hormone testing. It can be done with saliva, it can be done with dried urine, and we do a stool test. We need to find out, do you have pinworms, tapeworms? Do you have bad bacteria, and which ones? Do you have not enough good bacteria, and which ones? Do you have candida? Do you have strains of yeast? What is actually going on inside? So that way we can treat the cause and not the effect. When you treat the cause, it's very simple. Listen, if I were a college professor and I said, hey, in 2 months, everyone, you're gonna come back here, I'm gonna email you a test. And the test is gonna have questions and answers. And I say, listen, in 2 months, and so it's July now, so in September, we're gonna take a test. And that test is gonna be exactly what I'm sending you. Most, if not all people, are gonna pass the test. Why? Because you cheated on the test. You had the questions and the answers. Well, when we do this type of diagnostic testing, it's like we're cheating on the test. We're gonna get all the rhymes and reasons why can't you regulate your blood sugar. We're gonna come up with a specific customized program specifically for you. So that's why I say reversing diabetes is simple. But here's sometimes the problem. It's not easy, because when we get this data, then we're gonna tell you what you have to do. And if your motivation level is not at the point where it needs to be, you're either gonna find a way to not do it or say you can't do it. And I like this saying. I used it earlier on someone I was talking to. Listen, if you want something, you'll find a way. And if you don't want it, you'll find an excuse, or perhaps many. So if we have all the data, it'll be simple to know what to do. But we have to make sure that the person is motivated, properly motivated, and able to do it, so it becomes easy as well. Ask yourself, I'm on this medication, I'm on that medication. How long am I going to be on these medications? It's kind of a rhetorical question, but if you ask that to someone, they're going to say, forever. Exactly. Now just think about it from the pharmaceutical company's point of view. If I'm the CEO of a pharmaceutical company and there's no cure in sight for this disease, and I have you in my customer for life program, why would I make a cure? Doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense at all. So you have to think about these things. The key is testing. Then when we get testing, we're going to figure out what is proper nutrition for you specifically. And then we're going to figure out which organs and organ systems are not working properly. So we're going to check hormones, and it's going to be different for everyone. We're going to check everything. And so by doing that, we're able to come up with a customized plan that's different from all the other people in the waiting room that are sitting next to you who are diabetic. And then what happens is this. when it's time, so if you're on this amount of medications because your A1C is here and your blood sugars are here, and you start to do things to get to the cause of the problem and the numbers start to lower, but you remain on the same amount of medication and medications and dosages, then you can have a chance to become hypoglycemic or low blood sugar. So we never change your medications, but when it's time to, based on the numbers, we send you back to your prescribing physician. So, in my opinion, this is not referenced. The reason we're like this is because, number one, big food. I mean, there was a law that was passed a couple years ago. It's called the DARK Law, D-A-R-K, Deny Americans the Right to Know. It's an acronym that says, people said, hey, maybe we should warn everyone that our food is modified. But no, our politicians passed a law saying, no, we should not warn them. So, these companies make recipes, spend $20, $30 million on the recipe, so you can't eat just one potato chip. So you can't eat just one Dorito or whatever it is. Number two, your insurance company. I usually ask this question: do you think your insurance company cares about you? And everyone laughs, okay? But yet the majority of people in today's society, they let their insurance company dictate to them what they can and they can't have. Meanwhile, you just laughed at the question of, do they care about you? And so your insurance company is in the sick care business. So when you have an ailment, they will pay for you to handle that. Now that doesn't mean that that's bad. That's the business. But with healthcare, it doesn't really help. There is a test called CRP, C-reactive protein, an inflammatory marker, which will tell you your risk for future heart attack or stroke. Some insurance companies wouldn't pay for you to have that test until, that's right, you had a heart attack or stroke. Wouldn't you have liked to known that before? And then, the pharmaceutical industry, a $2 trillion business. We don't have to talk about that. I mean, that there's a cute girl with short skirt and high heels waiting in your doctor's office, waiting to give him samples to give to you. Your doctor didn't ask them to come. That's just how it is. It's just how the game's played. So again, that's covering up symptoms. That, you're allowed to do that model, of course, but does that make sense to you? Or even better yet, is it working for you? Are your numbers stabilized? Do you know what you need to do to lower it? Are things just steadily going up and you have no idea what to do? I can tell you food-wise, because everyone's always concerned about food. Am I going to have to starve myself? No, you literally can eat as much as you want. Literally can eat as much as you want. Matter of fact, most people, you don't eat enough. Now, we just need to figure out and find out, which we will, what you can and you can't eat. But when you can do that, you can eat as much as you want. And we will help you because we have all the references and all the data from helping literally thousands of patients to be able to streamline this for you so it's not that hard. Most patients tell us we make it sound harder than it really is. So if your pancreas is already secreting insulin, and there's a test we could do, but if you're not on insulin, it is, and if you are, it probably is anyway, but we're going to assume for this demonstration that it is. So if your pancreas is already secreting insulin when you eat and it connects to your food, the glucose, that molecule must get into the cell to create energy. You'll see ATP on the screen. That stands for adenosine triphosphate. Don't worry about that. Just think energy. And so, but what happens is, as diabetics, you become resistant to the insulin. And so that molecule can't get into the cell. So if it can't get into the cell, it's going to back up. Kind of like going into a major city in the morning. It's a lot of traffic, so there's a backup. So it backs up into the artery, you take your blood sugar, and it's going to be higher, obviously, right? So if I already told you that your pancreas is working fine, and it's secreting insulin, and you can't get that amount of insulin into the cell, that if I give you extra insulin, did I just make that problem better or worse? Obviously worse. Now, again, no one has permission, if you're on insulin, to stop taking your insulin because that made too much sense. So again, we never reduce or eliminate medication. We send you back to your doctor. But that's basically diabetes 101, that we have to find out why you're insulin resistant. It could be many different reasons why. And there are a lot of research papers online which tells you that's why insulin is not really a good treatment for the treatment of type 2 diabetes. decreases your lifespan 10 to 12 years. And then if your doctor's telling you lose weight, lose weight, lose weight, insulin is the most powerful fat-storing hormone that there is. So virtually impossible. Again, here's the key. The key to handling and reversing type 2 diabetes is we must find out why you can't regulate it. And again, it's going to be different for everyone. It could be thyroid issues, it could be fatty liver, it could be leaky gut, you could have adrenal fatigue, you could have decreased micronutrients, it could be a lot of different things, and actually it is a lot of different things. So we must find them all. And like I told you before, cheat on the test. When you cheat on the test, it's simple to reverse diabetes, but it might not be easy. So that's why it's very important that we are picking the right patients for this program, where you are ready to do whatever is necessary to reverse the process. And again, we're doing this on an online telemedicine type of program because we're trying to eliminate two barriers. Really, are there any other barriers these days except for time and money? I mean, those are the two barriers for everything, time and money. And so what we've done by launching this online telemedicine program is we're handling those two barriers for you. So if we handle those two barriers, and that would not be enough for you to finally make the decision to reverse your diabetes, then unfortunately, you're not a good candidate. I mean, will you have to restrict some certain foods? Yeah, of course you will. And basically, if you're not willing to give up your favorite food or drink, this is not something that's going to work for you. Now, will you have to give up your favorite food or drink? How would I know? I don't know what your favorite food or drink is, but you have to walk in knowing you might have to. And it might not be forever. It might be for a short period of time. It might till we find the test results to let you know that is or isn't a problem. Here's the thing, and I'll repeat this again. You will not starve yourself. You can eat, you literally can eat as much as you want. We just need to find out what you can eat that's good for you. So I want you to remember this, that diabetes is not a blood sugar problem. It is a blood vessel problem, because wherever that vessel's going, that's the complication. So blood vessel going to your brain, stroke. Blood vessel going to the heart, heart attack. Blood vessels going to the kidney, kidney failure. Blood vessels going to the liver, liver failure. Blood vessels going to the eyes, blindness. Blood vessels going to the feet and hands, amputation. And so it's very important that you know that. Now what we're going to do is we're going to scroll through some before and after blood work reports so you can see on paper what this looks like. Here's a patient started with a 7.4 A1C, blood sugar 237. This is on August 27th, and on 9/23, so that's what? It's about 26 days down to 6.4. Now you may, or you should know this, that A1C is a 12-week average, okay? So it's basically a 12-week average. This test was done at 26 days and it's a point lower, okay? Now here's another thing. A1C is an average of the percentage of how much sugar is on your red blood cell. So if your A1C in this case is now 6.4, that means it's covered 6.4% with sugar. But the average red blood cell should live 90 days. So what happens if your red blood cell's not living that? Maybe it's living 75 days. Maybe it's living 105 days. In that case, what it means is the A1C we see on the lab is not accurate, because it's only accurate if your red blood cell's living 90 days. That's an important test to do. You should be asking yourself, have I had that test done? Is something being missed in my case? So if you haven't had that test done, probably. Same patient, 6 weeks later, 6.0. Pre-diabetic, going down in medication. Blood sugar goes from 7.4 to 6.0, the A1C. Decreasing medication. Same patient, triglycerides, 291, should be less than 100. 28 days later, 83. 6 weeks later, 59. If you look on this lab, there's no bold. What does no bold mean? If I ask my son, hey, if it's bold and it says H or L, that means something's wrong on the lab, he would tell you, nothing's wrong. So we're not going to scroll through every single lab, but if you ever want to see before and after labs, you would be able to see them. So your health must be your number1 priority. You must have support from your family, from your spouse, from whoever lives in your house, because if not, they are going to sabotage you. If you're not allowed to have pepperoni pizza and they're going to bring pepperoni pizza right in front of you, That's not fair. Okay, so you must have support. You must be willing to give up your favorite food or drink. Your health must be your number one priority. But if it is, we can see objective results on tests, on paper. You know, I had a mentor years ago. He said, people lie, but numbers don't lie. People lie, numbers don't lie. These numbers don't lie. You can't argue them. They're on paper. And so it's very important that you know we're going to be measuring this. You're going to be taking your blood sugar. You're going to see the progression going down. We're going to make edits. We're going to make changes. Why? Because everything is custom made to you. You're not going to be on the merry-go-round of metformin, glyburide, glipizide, glimepiride, Actos, Januvia, Farxiga, Jardiance, and then on to insulin. That's not how it works. You know, the new one's called you guys call it Trulicity. I call it Falsicity. Okay? So again, that's the pill for an ill model. It's proven not to work. I'm not here telling you that medications are never called for and that they're not useful at times, but to handle this chronic degenerative disease, which is what type 2 diabetes is, it's not working. So I only want you to remember one thing, you know, type 2 diabetes is preventable, treatable, and reversible. And when we cheat on the test and pick the right patient, we rarely see a patient fail. And so, yes, you will still have to do work. Yes, there are things you will have to do. Yes, there will be a change, but we remove two of the biggest barriers. So if you're interested, if this is intriguing to you, we will get in touch with you, give you a little bit more data about how the program works and how this is and how we actually can do this. So thank you very much.